Hello everyone, this is part 7 of What If Naruto Married Ino Till Death, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Previously, why are you asking her out during the week? Wait, asks her to the party then. Kiba said, grinning at Naruto, who grinned right back. I will, he exclaimed happily as they plopped themselves down on the couch and begin planning. The next day came by as the sun shines through his window, hitting him on the face. He woke up quickly and ran to the bathroom. He was anxious to get to school and even more anxious to see the love of his life. He stood in the shower sighing heavily as he pictured her face. Dude, hurry up, Kiba screamed, banging on the door. Wait up, he screamed, not moving from his spot where the steamy water smacks softly against his face. He let out a soft sigh and turned the knob to stop the flow of water. He wrapped the towel around his waist and opened the door, letting it hit the face of an annoyed Kiba. Finally, he mumbled angrily as he shoved his blonde friend away and locked himself inside the bathroom. Naruto just stared at the door before heading to his room. He put on his school clothes and couldn't help the smile, the sweat running down the side of his forehead, the anxiety of wondering what she would say. He gulped hard and took a couple deep breaths before placing a confident smile and heading out of his room. You okay, Ino? Tenten asked, concerned, as they walked to their meeting spot. She nodded her head as the cool breeze flew by. The sun was up high and the clouds were rolling in. It is morning. She didn't know what to think about Kin's plan about the double date. Flashback. Because my dear Ino, she said with a smirk, let's double date. Double date? Ino asked with widened eyes. No, I do not want that bastard near Ino. You know what he did to her and you are going to offer up this plan. Shikamaru seethed out angrily as he glared at the woman. I know, Nara, she said, using his family name, but look at it this way. She sat back against her chair and took a calming breath. If Roy still has feelings for Ino, then he would clearly turn down all advances from me, correct? She asked while they nodded, and besides, the blind date that Ino would be going on, I will personally find out who it is and what is his intentions, she said matter-of-factly, and I will be there to protect our princess. Ino pouted while everyone else nodded knowingly. Tenten was a bit worried and wondered how everything would work out. She loves Ino as a sister and doesn't want to see her hurt. I still think we should have another person there just to be sure, she proposed, causing all eyes to land on her. You don't think I can handle it? Kin asked, feigning hurt. No, it's not that, Tenten said, shaking her head. What if he asks to be alone with you, and something happens? What if the two guys know each other? She asked, causing everyone to ponder on the situation. Guys, you don't have to watch me all the time, Ino said, offering a smile. We want you to be safe, Ino, Shino said, gaining a small blush from the blonde. She was smiling at him for his protectiveness and his caring personality, though he doesn't enjoy showing it a lot. What Tenten said could happen, Shikamaru said. Sai and Tenten will go as a couple and I will bring Temari there as well. Okay, but where is it? Sai asked while Shikamaru's sweat dropped. Oops. I'll call you guys when I find out from my father, K. Ino asked, feeling comfortable around her friends. They were like family to her and she could never leave any of them. Okay then, everything is covered, Kabuto sighed out and stood. Ino just knew that something was going to happen. She could feel it, but then again it could just be the nervousness in the pit of her stomach causing her to feel this way. End flashback. Do you think it'd work? The blonde beauty asked her close friend. Tenten turned to face her as they reached the destination. The brunette could see the worried look on her friend's eyes and she wasn't sure what to say. This was going to be tough on Ino and she knew that. After a brief silence and a soft breeze, Tenten decided to tell her the truth. I don't know, she said helplessly, and Ino just gave her a smile. Oh, the Shika and Temari, Ino announced as she waved toward the couple. The two waited for them to make their way toward them. Morning, Tenten said, smiling at Temari and Shikamaru. Morning, he drawled out lazily as he yawned. Did you not sleep well? Temari asked, concerned laced around her words. Shikamaru nodded with his hands in his pockets while Temari's arm is around his. Ino just smiled watching the two, and a part of her wished she had someone like that too. Then again, she'd wait if it means her soulmate would show up. You okay? Shikamaru asked worriedly as his eyebrows furrowed in concern. Ino waved him off as a sign. I'm okay. A couple minutes later, Hinata showed up greeting everyone. Good morning, she greeted. Morning, everyone said in unison, though one unenthusiastically. I'm sorry I couldn't be there last night, Hinata apologized softly. Last night? Temari asked looking at her boyfriend. It's okay Hinata, don't worry about it, Ino said patting her on the shoulder. Yeah, I'll tell you about the plan, Tenten said smiling at the pale-eyed girl. Last night, so you were with them. Temari screamed as she dropped his arm. She was beyond angry and the three girls just looked on confused. I told you I had to teach Ino, Shikamaru tried to defend himself. No, the sandy blonde interrupted, don't you dare use that excuse. It's always her, always will and always has. She screamed with watery eyes and ran off. Everyone stared at her retreating figure. Ino looked over at Shikamaru who looked shocked and angry as he stood frozen in place. What are you doing? Ino screamed at him, go after her. Shikamaru looked at his best friend then back at his girlfriend before giving out an aggravated sigh. She's always like this, he said as he faced away from the direction his should go, better without her, he mumbled the last bits as he headed off to his first class with the three girls in tow. Always bottling it up Shika, when will you learn? Ino thought to herself sadly. Stupid Kiba and his damn showers, stupid clothes and stupid hair, the blonde male mumbled angrily as he walked to lunch. He ended up being late to first class because of Kiba fixing himself up in the bathroom all this time. And I happened to be a good friend and waited for him, stupid Kiba. He seethed out angrily as he walked toward the lunch line, and I didn't see her all day. Hey Naruto, Lee called out to him, mind getting me a fruit plate? Naruto nodded his head as Lee smiled back kindly and ran inside the cafeteria to find their seats. As Naruto walked into the cafeteria 10 minutes after Lee, he noticed the tables were packed. Damn, he thought to himself. He looked around to find his friends, and did but it too longer than he'd like. Where's my seat? He asked seeing that the table was full and no extra chairs. Sorry Naruto, I tried, but that girl took it, Lee said sadly pointing behind him briefly, and you know me. Yeah, Naruto waved it off and placed the fruit plate on the table for him. Hey Naruto, Kiba said with a grin across his face, why don't you go sit with your girlfriend? With that said, he immediately blushed. He turned to where Kiba was looking to find Ino sitting at the table with her friends and there was a seat open. He turned back to look at his friends with a look of horror. Are you scared? Kiba pressed on, you know you want to go, so go. Kiba, stop forcing him, he can sit here, Gaara said standing up, but Kiba wouldn't let it go. Go on Naruto, you can do it, remember what we said, Kiba said wriggling his eyebrows. Naruto's face fell and he felt like he lost his appetite and he would barf any minute. He closed his eyes, cleared his head and nodded. He took a couple of breaths and walked over to her. It felt like he was in slow motion. Every step he took was closer to her and everyone else was blurred. The feeling of sickness disappeared when the nervousness, the excitement, the joy took over. He stopped right behind her and no one noticed him. He opened his mouth and nothing came out, it was as if he had no voice. He could feel his body shaking, his heart beating furiously, and his knees knocking against one another. He took another breath and pulled all the courage he had to ask. Is this seat taken? Previously. He took another breath and pulled all the courage he had to ask. Is this seat taken? It was almost as if the world froze as he stood there so close behind the beautiful blonde. Time then slowly began as she turned her head toward him. His heart beat erratically and his hand shook slightly as he clenched his hands into a fist only to remind him of reality. He saw her face and it was as beautiful as the moon glowing its beauty. He saw her move her lips, but wasn't registering what she was saying. All he saw was those luscious lips that he dreams of kissing, the lips that he could capture with just a few steps forward, the lips that he would intentionally get trapped in. Don't think like that idiot. He scolded himself as he shook his head invisibly. Did you hear me Naruto? Her voice finally came through his mind as clear as the skies. Naruto managed to say before shaking his head to the sides embarrassed. Someone is already sitting here, Ino repeated herself sadly as she noticed the hurt in his deep sapphire eyes. She offered a sad smile and he nodded his head and apologized with a slight bow before heading back to his friends. He hung his head as he dragged himself back to his friends who looked at him worriedly. Dude, sorry, man, Kiba said softly as his blonde friend walked past him to sit in Gaara's chair. He only received a shook of his head once again before he sat like a stone. Stupid kid, someone with bright blue hair said in another table, what makes him think he has a chance with Muz Yamanaka? Yeah, the person beside the blue-haired person said, he doesn't stand a chance. After hearing this, Naruto dropped his head even lower and his forehead smacked down against the table. His friends knew they couldn't really do anything, but let Naruto take care of his mess on his own. Where's Neji? Lee decided to ask after a brief silence at the table. He has to stop by one of his classes, Gaara informed the bowl-haircut male. Yosh. Gaining knowledge is being youthful. Lee exclaimed, showing off his big bright smile that shined if in the darkest of the dark. Gaara just stared at him unaffected by his shining jewels, while Kiba looked at his best friend the whole time. He felt bad for making him do it, but it wasn't like it was the end to Naruto and Ino. If he really loves her, and he'd do anything for her, why is he here sulking? Ino felt bad for sending Naruto away, since the chair really was occupied for Sai. She noticed how his head was hung low and wondered if she should call out to him. She decided that she should, so as she opened her mouth to call out the blonde's name, Sai appeared. I'm sorry, but I had to do something, Sai said, giving them his most apologetic look. Ino turned to him and gave a smile that he gladly returned. He sat down beside her, while she turned back to face her friends instead of the man walking away. Shikamaru, where's Temari? A female with short raven hair asked. The lazy male stared at her before looking away. Not here obviously, he stated dully, and Ino just stared at him. The girl who asked kept her mouth shut as she turned to talk with another person beside her. Sai, Ino asked as she faced the male, you've been busy lately, is everything alright? She asked concerned. No, Sai said, offering her a smile, there has been many requests. Oh, what kind? She asked interested as she leaned in closer. They want me to draw their picture for them, he said, all the while smiling at the blonde with wide blue eyes. Oh, that's great, Sai. Told you you'll be famous, she said teasingly and happily. What are you doing? Kiba brought up as he stared quizzically at his friend. Naruto lifted his head off the table and stared dully at the brunette. Kiba let out a sigh and let him sit there sulking, but he needed to bring up what they talked about again. It may just push him enough to take the chance. Do you love her? He asked questionably. Yeah, I do, Naruto said, looking down at the table. Then answer me, Kiba said, what are you doing? Naruto stared at his friend for a couple of minutes as his two friends politely ignored them. Nothing, he murmured. Exactly, Kiba pointed out, if you love her, then why are you doing nothing? Naruto's eyes widened as the words hit him face first. He looked to where Ino was and his heart almost leapt out of his chest until he noticed her smile and her hand on the shoulder of the raven-haired male. He felt a ting of jealousy, anger, and confusion. He wanted to smile reassuringly to Kiba, but his lips only turned into a frown. Why? Naruto asked himself sadly as he just watched the blonde he loves from afar before someone screamed. What the hell is wrong with you? A voice from a violet-haired woman screamed out, causing everyone to face the scene. In walked through a dirty blonde female that looked extremely angry and pissed. Ino stared innocently at her, but felt the large cur intent toward her anyways. Did I do something? Ino asked herself, confused. Temari, Shikamaru murmured as she stood in front of them with both hands on her hips. Her eyes locked onto his before it landed onto Ino's. She walked up to her and stood looking down at Ino while the lovable blonde stayed seated. Hey Temari, Ino said, smiling slightly before it turned into a straight line when said person held up her hand. Ino, she said icily, I know you and Shikamaru have known each other for a long time, she started, voice cracking slightly, and I also know that I can never get between the bond that you two held for one another. Tears were forming at the corner of her eyes. Take care of him for me, and with that she walked off without a second look behind her. Ino sat there confused, puzzled, and perplexed at what had just happened. Temari looked angry. Temari said that she and Shikamaru has been friends for a long time, strong bond, take care of him. Ino looked over at Shikamaru, who seemed confused as well since his bottom lips was pushed forward and his eyebrows furrowed together. Ino then looked back at the place her friend was currently at before she walked off. What just happened? Tenten asked, startled and confused. Temari, Shikamaru stated, finally looking away only to be caught by Blue. He blinked a couple of times before whose eyes it was registered. She's mad, he told himself, seeing the flames in her eyes. Ino stared into her best friend's eyes to see worries, but he wasn't acting on it. Why isn't he going after her? Yeah, he's lazy, but come on. Ino screamed at herself. She wished Shikamaru could read minds, because if he did, then he would have run off after Temari by now. She wasn't going to be like her friend. She wasn't going to sit around doing nothing when obviously he loves Temari just as much as she does. She isn't going to pretend that everything was going to be okay and everything would fall back into place, because reality isn't that easy. She isn't going to think that if the person she loves doesn't come back then it is okay, because it isn't. Shikamaru is her best friend, the man she trusts with everything, the person she relies on, the person she would never give up in a heartbeat because he wouldn't either. They grew up together, faced difficulties with one another, went through life together. Sometimes they would joke that they'll grow up old together, living next door and never getting rid of one another. She relies on him with everything and he never relies on her, but she always takes the step to do so anyways. So staring into his eyes, she knew he needed comfort, he needed encouragement with no words. She knew he knows that he should have gone after the love of his life. She knew that he wanted to verbally call out to her, but his ego wouldn't let him. She could see the fear, the sadness, and the pain hidden in those dark brown eyes. After a few minutes passed, she got up and walked away. No, she wasn't going to sit and watch the opportunity for love to just pass by, she isn't going to do it again. Who cares if they say she would always get hurt in the end, that maybe she never knew what love was, that she was still young and naive. She didn't care because love is a wondrous feeling and if it is there, then she was going to grab it. Naruto, she said softly as his eyes met hers, would you like to go out? Previously, she didn't care because love is a wondrous feeling and if it is there, then she was going to grab it. Naruto stared wide-eyed at the blonde beauty that only in his wildest dream would be there. He noticed the look in her eyes as she walked over to him, it was filled with determination, perseverance, and happiness. She strode casually to him as if the event never happened. Her hair flowing beautifully behind her up in a ponytail, her hips swaying seductively as she walked, though she may not notice that she was doing it, her legs moving and stepping to get closer to him, and he almost felt like he was in some kind of dream. Everything seemed so surreal, so odd that he didn't dare to blink. He was too afraid that she would disappear like all the other times he wakes up in an empty bed. Naruto, she said softly as his eyes met hers, would you like to go out? That question froze his insides, but missed his heart. The beating, the pumping, the loud thud inside his ears almost made him want to hit the floor. He knew he must look absolutely horrendous in front of her with his eyes bulging out of his socket, his mouth hung low, and his inaudible voice. He noticed her face showing disappointment, and that was when he snapped out of it. He moved his mouth so it would close as his eyes fell back into place. His lips curved upward into a smile that broke into a grin, making his eyes smaller. He didn't know why, but it felt weird that she was asking him, shouldn't it be the other way around? It doesn't matter, she asked, and now he was being an idiot for not saying yes. What? Someone shouted as it echoed through the silent cafeteria. Then that was when it happened. The screams, the objection, the hysteric of cries and confusion, mixed with anger. So many words were thrown as everyone stood with eyes locked onto the two blondes, whom neither took notice of the reaction. Both blue eyes locked against one another and nothing else seemed to matter, but the answer that would be given. Ino. Naruto started with a shaky voice before he took a large gulp to clear it. I would love to go out with you. He felt relieved as he saw her smile turn into a cute grin. The whole place was quiet and it was as if they could hear one another's heartbeat. But that was speaking too soon. As a few seconds passed, the noise erupted once again. What? Everyone was talking and screaming, yelling and frantically gossiping to one another like they had done something terrible. Ino ignored him as she walked up to Naruto and offered her hand to him. His deep blue eyes stared into her sky blue ones as he placed his hand onto hers. He smiled at her lovingly as she wrapped her fingers with his and walked out of the mess. Shikamaru watched as Ino glanced at him for a split second, but those short seconds meant everything that needed to be said. Go find her. He knew that was what she was getting across. He knew that what she had done broke the whole code and the stupid social ladder. He couldn't help but smile at how far she had come. He knew what he must do, but he wasn't sure if now was the right time, so he decided to wait in order to speak to his good friend first. Finally, Kiba said in a soft voice as he wore a huge smile as he watched the two walk out hand in hand. Gaara also watched with somewhat a worried and happy look. Lee on the other hand had on an obvious look of excitement. But everyone else looked on confused, disgusted, and angry. Naruto, Ino said as she sat onto the grass under the tree of her groups, what's wrong? She asked looking at him as he stood nervously. No, it's nothing, he said nervously as he sat down close to her. She looked at how close they were and smiled at him, while he blushed and looked down, only to notice the close proximity. Sorry, he apologized as he jumped a few inches away. He scolded himself mentally. He was finally alone with her again and he is acting like a total fool. He needed to loosen up and not be so stupid. He looked over at Ino to see her unwrapping her sandwich. She looked over at him to see him further apart and couldn't help but let out a light giggle. Is there something wrong with me, Naruto? She asked playfully to see his cheeks redden slightly. He shook his head side to side quickly as he held up his hand almost as a defense. No, Naruto said stuttering as her smile faded into a small frown. Do I smell? Ino questioned again. No, you smell good. Am I ugly? No, you're beautiful. Maybe it's my breath. No, your breath smells fresh. Ino couldn't help but laugh at the two of them. With every assumption she made, he got closer and he was practically in the same place he was before. She broke her sandwich in half and offered it to him. Would you like some? She asked to see his eyes widen slightly before he took the offering. Thank you, he said in a low voice before he started munching on the food. They ate together quietly as the sun beat down on the tree shading them. She smiled at everything today. This morning to now, with Temari acting this way. Shikamaru has to do something soon or else Temari would fall further away from him. She sighed unconsciously before turning to face Naruto once again, who was calling her. Ino, you did it on purpose, Naruto said accusingly, right? What do you mean? She asked innocently, though her bright smile tells another story. Getting me closer to you, he said, blushing with a pink hue around his cheeks. She laughed softly and nodded her head. Are you mad? She asked quietly, taking a small bite off of her sandwich. No, Naruto said honestly, giving her a smile before finishing off his piece of the sandwich. He wanted this to last forever. It was quiet and he felt comfortable around her. He knew it in his heart that this girl was the one for him, that whatever happens she would obtain his heart no matter what. He developed the courage to grab her hand into his and rubbed it soothingly. She was startled but relaxed into his touch with a smile. She was indeed happy, just like before. Flashback. Ino, he said softly against her ears as she lay against his chest, how are you feeling? Better now, she said softly as she closed her eyes only to open them shortly. He is always so warm, so gentle, so easy to love. She wanted this feeling to stay, to always be with this man only. I'm glad, he said softly as he drops his head to kiss her forehead and she smiled lovingly. Choji, she said softly, can we stay like this a little longer? Of course, he replied with no hesitation as he ran his fingers through her golden tresses. Let this last longer, she told herself as she closed her eyes once more to allow the feeling of his touch to be remembered. End flashback. Though she didn't want to feel it again, the way love feels, but the man beside her now proved that she could just do it again. She'd let him in slowly, but eventually because she knows that it's love. The feeling of a large attachment, the growing connection, the undeniable chemistry, and the comfortable, yet uneasy feelings, she knows. She will give Naruto a chance. She only wishes he doesn't break her like all the others. The bell rang signaling the return to classes and everyone got up, still not comprehending the event that just unfolded in front of them. The place finally clears, but left the aura of anger and resentment. This wasn't supposed to happen, this never happens. Why would the most beautiful girl in the school go out with an average Joe? Why would she stoop so low as to even be near him? He doesn't deserve her. He shouldn't even be near her, to touch her, to have her smile, to smell her fragrance and breathe her air. I will fix this mess, if it KS me, and with that the bell rang for dismissed of school. He needed a new plan to get himself noticed, and at this rate the perfect blonde chose another blonde who isn't up to her league at all. Change of plans, and change of course, he was going to be noticed no matter what, even if it hurts his love, Yamanaka Ino. X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.